North American Futures, a scholarly examination of the key issues driving the Canada-U.S. relationship. A presentation of the University of California at Berkeley and UBC. North American Futures. See it on CPAC.
We are dealing very explicitly in a broad North American context, and we are dealing very explicitly in a wide world.
On the security issue, Canada is a policy taker, and the United States is a policy maker. Pearson Airport implemented enhanced security regulations before the TSA issued them in Washington, right? Anybody who was around on the 25th and 26th of December, 27th, trying to get out of Pearson Airport knows that we were ahead of every airport in the United States. We anticipated what the regulations would be. We implemented them. And frankly, we take policy. And we have virtually no capacity to negotiate the rules in any significant way. And I think this is likely on the security field. Now, Paul said to me at lunch, you're wrong, because the policymaker was Al-Qaeda, the policy taker is the United States. And that's correct. But as far as Canada is concerned, we are the policy taker in that relationship.
The diffusion of power and the blurring of boundaries. As I said, this is not something that is, emerging. This is something that has happened. It is in the process of happening to both other states and to non-state actors. We don't have a clear position on whether we think that's a good idea or a bad idea. We sort of hedge it. When I say we, I mean the United States. We hedge it with arguments like burden sharing and responsibility sharing and phrases like, and I love the speech, forgive me for this, quoting Bob Zelig, we tell the Chinese we want them to be a responsible stakeholder, which is defined as, you guys pay for our view of world order. Here's my question that the United States will have to answer over the course of the next couple of years, maybe sooner, and to which I believe the Canadians could make an interesting and valuable contribution that maybe we could hear. Look, is Washington ready to take yes for an answer to that question? From China in particular, but from others as well. And forgive me for this, but I think it's an unhealthy obsession. Most obsessions are unhealthy. This one is particularly unhealthy. The obsession with process over outcome. If I get involved in another argument about multilateralism versus unilateralism, I am going to shoot myself. That's not a real argument. The rest of the world doesn't really care about process in that. Now, look, I'm overstating the case. There are reasons to be concerned about the legitimacy of political processes, right? But look, this is a bargaining game, as I said. And bargaining, as we know, is all about creating alternatives. While we're arguing about whether it should be a multilateral or bilateral or a unilateral or whatever sort of process for making decisions, the rest of the world is moving on and creating de facto fait accomplis on issues like the nuclear regime, on energy supplies, on technology standards, soon enough, I believe, on currency and reserves as well. We need to get out of the space of being so focused on whether it's the G2, the G20, the G8, and start putting together the solutions to problems. We can argue that this is a non-ideological, technocratic stance towards problem solving, but in fact, there are a lot of people in the rest of the world who would like to see us take that position. And I feel like in some significant way, the Canadians would be a very friendly presence in that kind of a conversion when we think about our sort of view of how we're going to relate to the rest of the world. And finally, lastly, call it the shadow of the future. Look, here's the dirty little secret of globalization. It didn't work for 3 billion people on the planet. In their minds, they have nothing to lose from it coming to an end. Right? They may be wrong. We can argue about whether that's right or wrong. I'm saying about what they believe. And if the American political elite is bad at anything, in my view, it is really bad at facing us up to the fact that it has to make gut-wrenching choices about things and values that it doesn't want to trade off against each other.
To return to a question that we ask in the paper, would Canada take a yes from the United States? Were the United States, in fact, really seriously to say there has to be greater burden sharing, there has to be greater engagement. There is a new world, there are new players, and there are differential obligations that flow from coming to the table. Are we prepared to come if we have to pare away? It's not clear that we are either. It's not clear that we're prepared to take ES in Canada, or that we're ready to, or that we've invested in the kinds in our foreign service, in our aid program, in all the other instruments that it takes to actually say yes if the opportunity is there. So I think that's something for us to take home as well.
You know, I think a lot of what's been said are things that those of us who work on the bilateral relationship actually do accept every day. We do accept that in fact we would like this relationship to be a little bit more prominent. We think there are benefits to both countries, that we think that we have to look at new ways to cooperate and collaborate, especially as we confront, and I will now begin to call them fully emerged powers. If Canada wants to move North America ahead more than the United States does right now, I actually think it might be a good time for Canada to put a proposal forward to the United States, a vision, a plan. The answer to that I often get as a U.S. government official is, we're a minority government. That's not going to happen while we're a minority government. So one of the things we do is look for ways, I think a little bit, as Tom Pickering said, to move forward on the tactical from below, if you will, and then continue to try and work on ways to get something coming down from above for which we can be ready. And I think that some of the things that we've been doing really have the possibility, the potential to improve that. Because what I'm saying is I think what we're looking for as we push this vision forward is where the border and the juridical line becomes, frankly, one component in a security relationship, possibly even a lesser important component than our other areas of security. And in reducing its importance as, you know, the Maginot Line of security, you also obviously will facilitate a freer flow of traffic and trade and legitimate commerce. We are not necessarily capitalizing on our membership of all of those alphabet soup of organizations. The fact that we are members of, you know, and I can't remember who on the previous panel listed them, but that was actually only a partial listing and it was pretty long. We have talked for quite a while about a sort of a North American caucus in those entities. You know, whether it's APEC, whether it's the OAS, other areas. I'm not sure that we're really doing that yet, and I think that could be extraordinarily useful to us. Right now, when we look at our southern border and we see Mexico confronting drug trafficking organizations who clearly have operations in over 200 U.S. cities and in hefty parts of Canada, I would add, including British Columbia. This is all of our problem. And the United States and Canada are beginning to work on that issue and work with Mexico. That is a truly North American problem, even though the most violent manifestation of it obviously is in Mexico, the most severe. But these are the kinds of things that we should be looking at to advance North America, even if, as Ambassador Pickering said earlier today, we start that incrementally and not with the big vision right now that I think all of us would like to see because of other things on the plate.
Because, as someone once said to me in London when we were being ignored all the time, do the unexpected. And it was unexpected that Canada and Mexico and the United States would co-present themselves as a thing. And I think that as an ally in a community with the United States, that we can contribute to that, Janice. But I would like to comment on something you said. It is not a question of joining a coalition of the willing just to demonstrate our loyalty. Mm-hmm. We have to do what we authentically are. And what I think we authentically are, increasingly, is North American. And I don't think there's anything wrong with asserting that. And I think that our challenge, in meeting your challenge of putting forward a proposal, is that the United States also begin to behave as North Americans. I'd like to know what you think of that.
In order for the three countries to think as North Americans, they need not do it simultaneously. And as I gathered, Jeremy's point was that Canada may be well positioned to take some leadership on this and to why?
Yeah.
Well, who would do it better? Of the three, who could do it better? The Mexicans can't. The Americans have their own preoccupations. It is a field where we could do it better. Anyway, let me retreat to the neutrality of the chair. Next is Roberta, and then Paul, and then Steve.
I actually do think this is a particularly good time for Canada to take a leadership role on things North American because we in the United States feel so hemmed in by the political dysfunctionality, if you want to call it that there are a lot of people in government who I think, if presented with a proposal from the top, would give it more attention than they otherwise might. In other words, this is not, and I think most of us agree, and I don't think it's simply a reflection of a bureaucrat's frustration. This isn't something that's going to come from below. I mean, we all watched the SPP over the last 4 years, and the SPP was, and I remember getting the instructions. The instructions were twofold. Okay, we got two pieces of instructions from above when we started the SPP. No resources, no new resources, no new legislation. Okay? And I thought, what do I do with this? You know? Because we've just been told, think small. Okay, and so we had a really big book with 300 different items on it in English, French, and Spanish, and it's a doorstop for most people.
I want to say something about the sort of the thicker border. I don't think that to think North American means to remove borders necessarily. I think that that's part of where we go wrong. We think to ourselves, my God, we have to, this is a thick border, it's a stupid border, it's Janet Napolitano's border, and somehow we've got to overcome that, and then we can face the world. I don't think we have to do it in that order. I think we have to recognize that we are in this together, and there are some things will follow from that. But you don't have to sort of recreate North America before you get started on dealing with the rest of the world. That would be. The second thing is, be careful with the term first mover, because I can tell you on a lot of things, we look a lot more like the last mover than the first mover. Think of climate change. Where on earth have we been on climate change?
Actually, that's an interesting one for the coming year. Mexico will host COP16. No, but that's the point is, between now and December, can we do anything with that? Can we exploit Mexico's chairmanship of COP16 to do anything that couldn't be done in Copenhagen? And the answer may very well be no.
We're not here, we shouldn't be confined by what we are. We're talking here about what we could be. And hard positions that countries or individuals have adopted can be changed.
And again, we're on Chatham House rules. The Prime Minister...
We're not, by the way.
Yes, we are. I declared...
I stopped.
Don't be alarmed, anybody, by Ambassador Kinsman's intervention. He and I will look after, in the American tradition, we will look after the tape.
On the security situation in Mexico, for better or worse, it's a North American solution only because the Mexicans asked for it. The Mexicans have never, ever come to the United States with a request like that before, had never wanted to partner with us in this fashion, and did at the beginning of the Calderon administration when, as the President put it, he thought he had a tumor in the Mexican body, and what he discovered was that it had metastasized throughout the entire body, and he needed more help than he was going to be able to provide.
Let me thank the panel and also thank the room for a session that I think was quite interesting.